What's up, everybody? Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So, man, the most shocking news I think in the automotive world so far this year came out this week when Ford announced that they're going to be killing off all of their cars other than the Mustang and the upcoming Focus Active, and they're going to do just SUVs and trucks other than those two, which is just crazy. So this was announced in a quarterly financial report, and so the actual terminology, they said they're not going to invest in next-gen versions of these vehicles. So that means they're not going to continue building. They're killing off the Fiesta, Focus, Taurus, and C-Max, I believe, and the Fusion. So all five of those will be killed. Now, we do know that they just did a refresh for 2019 for the Fusion. It's a light refresh, but they did change it, which means they're committed to it probably for at least a couple more years. So again, this is saying they're not going to develop next-gen versions. But the thing is, most of those cars will be killed off really soon because they're already at the end of their life. We already have a next-gen Fiesta overseas. There's already the next-gen Focus that was just revealed, for the rest of the world that we won't be getting outside of that active trim, which they did show, and we haven't seen the US version of that yet. But basically, it's just, like what Subaru does to their vehicles, where you take the basic Focus, lift it up an inch, make the hatchback version a little more aggressive looking, and you're set. And so that'll sell really well in the States here, and so I think that's why they're going to bring that one over. But it sounds like they're not bringing any other variants of the Focus over. Then the Fusion will die once this refresh, has run on long enough. The Taurus, has been ancient. I mean, that's the thing is, some people are saying, well, those vehicles didn't sell very well, so that's why they killed them. But the only reason why they weren't selling well is because they were all ancient. I mean, the Fiesta was revealed, I think, in 2010, and then the Focus, I think, was 2012. Taurus, I think, was 2012, and even the Fusion came out, I think, like 2013. So, I mean, we're looking at vehicles that are all, somewhere between 5 to 8 years old already. So, of course, they're not selling well. They sold well when they were first revealed, and I think a next-gen version would reinvigorate that, just like with anything else. You could say the same thing about the Mustang with the, previous generation, 2013, 2014, sales kind of dwindled down a little bit. And then guess what? 2015, brand new version came out, sales skyrocketed once again and, took off. So that's just the nature of product cycles. But I get, everyone's going to crossovers and Ford wants to be trendy. And so they're just ditching them all together. I mean, it's the whole segment is having, struggles. I mean, Toyota's having to load up the new Camry with a bunch of incentives to get those to sell. Honda's not selling the Accord very well because they refuse to load them up with incentives. And then, just the rest of the segment is just having struggles all around. And so everyone's going to crossovers instead, and it's just the way things are going. So again, this is what happens. Like, it's seriously like, it's one of those things that if you want to keep vehicles around, you have to buy them new. Buying them used doesn't, give a manufacturer any more incentive to go build more of them. And so if you're not buying a new version of whatever it is that you want to see stick around, then you're not helping to keep it going. So that's why some people might think I'm crazy for, this will be my fourth S550 Mustang, but I'm voting with my dollars that yes, Ford, I want you to keep the Mustang around. And I get a great car out of it. So it's a win-win. But anyway, off that little tangent, going back to what this means, though, as far as for enthusiasts here, that means if there is, obviously, we're not going to get a next-gen Fiesta ST, which is sad because the original one was great. We also won't be getting the new Focus ST, which was a really big hit here in the States, and it sounds like we're not going to be getting that. Also means we are not getting the new Focus RS, which is currently being developed for overseas along with the new ST. And I'll actually get to the ST in a minute here, but yeah, so I mean, no more RS. It's just, we got the RS for one generation, just for 2 model years here, and that's it. So my prediction is expect any kind of ST product, values in the used market to definitely stay strong or maybe even go up. And those remaining Focus RSs that are new, expect dealer markups to come back on those, because if this is truly the last RS we may ever see in the history of Ford United States here, then you better believe they're going to be trying to get top dollar for those. So, and those of you that have RSs, I'd hang on to them. They might actually become worth a little bit more here soon. But again, now Ford didn't officially outline what they're killing building or when, or, you know, what isn't coming and all that type of stuff. But they said they're not investing in next-gen versions for the United States. Now, obviously, this stuff is, like I said, rolling out for the rest of the world. You know, the Focus and Fiesta both sell very well in Europe, and that's why they have new next-gen versions already being revealed for them. Also, I think they said the Mondeo, which we get as the Fusion, that will continue on for Europe. So they will have international versions of these vehicles. So there will be an option to possibly maybe import those new versions back over here if the market somehow changes or something. But Ford did emphasize, you know, because a lot of people are worried about, you know, fuel economy. They're saying, well, if gas goes back up, no one's going to want all these SUVs, and then Ford's going to be screwed. But the thing is, you know, a lot of these crossovers like the EcoSport and the Escape get very similar fuel economy to their sedan counterparts as well. So it's not a huge trade-off, but Ford did say that they're going to have hybrid versions of basically the entire lineup, you know, relatively soon, and that will help to fill in the gap for those that want something a little more fuel efficient. And so they announced officially they're going to have a hybrid version of the F-150, Mustang, Explorer, Escape, and Bronco, which we basically knew all those already except for the Bronco, but, you know, not a huge revelation there. So, but anyway, yeah, so here, you know, in a few years, the only Fords you'll be able to buy are the Mustang, the Focus Active, and then your choice of SUVs or trucks. That's it. If you want a sedan, you're going to have to go somewhere else. So pretty crazy, but that's the times we're living in. Going back to that Focus ST though, to pour some salt into the wound of all of us here in America, there's a new report from Autocar this past week saying that recently there was a rumor circulating that would probably get the 1.5 liter turbo 3-cylinder out of the Fiesta ST, but the new report here is saying that the Focus ST is actually going to be getting a detuned version of the Focus RS motor for the next gen version, and could have up to like 310 horsepower like it gets in the EcoBoost Mustang, which would be a really nice midway point, you know, if they're going to have the new Focus RS for everyone ever sees, that'll do 400 horsepower with a hybrid version, you know, have 400 horsepower for the RS, 310 horsepower for the ST, and neither of them are coming to the States. Hip hip hooray. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get too cynical here, but it's just really a bummer. These are really cool cars that it's going to be a little less exciting in the automotive landscape without them. So anyway, another cool little small Ford we're not going to be getting is Ford officially this past week revealed the Fiesta van, which is basically a 3-door Fiesta with the rear windows blocked out. This is obviously intended for, you know, small little delivery runs and things like that. So yeah, anyway, cool to see that. But for some more bad news, I promise we're going to have some good news here in a minute. Another little story here is Mitsubishi. There's a new rumor circulating that they're considering bringing back the Lancer, because it was discontinued last year, but they're going to bring back the Lancer, but you guessed it, it's going to be a crossover. So basically, in an interview with Auto Express, Mitsubishi's chief operating officer and chief designer were talking about the C segment, which is where the Lancer would reside. And they said, we believe we have a solution that could fit the segment. Just because it's C segment, it doesn't mean it has to be a very conventional hatchback. Maybe we can create a new type of hatchback vehicle. We're thinking quite radically. But it's not very radical. It's just everyone else is going to crossovers and they want to do the same thing. So, I mean, they did show the E-Evolution concept last year, which was like, you know, this crazy, I guess, lifted car hatch thing that, you know, they're saying could be like a future, you know, hybrid or electric Evo. And, obviously the Eclipse has been turned into the Eclipse Cross. And so they've already done that as a crossover. And I'm pretty sure Mitsubishi is planning on just going for an entire SUV lineup. And so this is, one of the things I'm sure if they want to have some type of other SUV, they just reintroduce the Lancer name, maybe give the Lancer Cross or whatever, and there you go. So no name is sacred within Mitsubishi anymore. But for some good news here, Lexus is actually committed to the sedan, thankfully, and they're not giving up on them. This week, they just launched the 2019 ES, and so the bad news is it's still front-wheel drive and still on the same platform as the Avalon and the Camry, so it's not very sporty. But hey, beggars can't be choosers these days, I'm just glad they're actually doing a sedan here. It's basically what people want, they want a nicer, Lexus version of a Camry or an Avalon, and so that makes sense. The styling actually looks quite good to me, though, I have to say. I think the whole Lexus grille and stuff is really starting to, kind of warm over on me, and I don't know, I think it looks pretty good, like a shrunken down version of the LS there. The only thing I'll say is the interior looks a little more bland than other Lexuses, which really had some cool design elements in them recently. And so for this one, it just looks a little meh. But otherwise, some big improvements on the interior are that now it's going to finally have Apple CarPlay and Amazon Alexa. It won't have Android Auto still. I think there's some issue between Toyota and Android as far as something going on with that. So that's why no Android Auto for any Toyota or Lexus products, but at least Apple CarPlay and Amazon Alexa, which is cool. Anyway, as far as the details here for this new ES, it's going to be 2.6 inches longer, 0.2 inches lower, 1.8 inches wider, so it's going to be a bigger car than the old ES for sure, 2-inch longer wheelbase as well. And actually that longer wheelbase means that they say supposedly it has a more rear seat room than the LS, which is the full-size one, which seems kind of odd. You wouldn't want to have a larger back seat than your full-size sedan, but who knows. Anyway, this is going to be built in the Kentucky Toyota plant, and it's going to weigh only 78 pounds more than the old ES with a curb weight of supposedly 3,649 pounds. And so there's going to be two different models of them here. The regular gasoline ES350 is going to be getting a 3.5-liter V6, same one as the Avalon and the Camry, 302 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque in the Lexus version here. It gets 1 mpg better in the city and 3 mpg better on the highway for 22 mpgs in the city, 33 on the highway, 26 combined. The ES300H is the hybrid version. It's the same hybrid powertrain as the Avalon, so that uses a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine combined with 2 electric motors, I believe. A total output is 215 horsepower with that. And the Avalon, it does 43 mpg for everything, and so probably something similar here for the ES. Both these models are going to be using an 8-speed automatic, and there's a new ES F Sport model, which is just basically, the sportier appearance. I think it also has a little bit of an actual sportier intention though too, because they say it's going to have a Sport Plus drive mode, and it has the adaptive variable dampers that they say come from the LC, but sound real similar to the variable adaptive suspension in the Avalon that I just drove this past week, and it's based on the Avalon, so I'm guessing it resembles more closely the Avalon suspension than the LC, but maybe the Avalon got it from the LC as well. I don't know. But anyway, but that's a good improvement nonetheless. It certainly should help it, be more planted with its handling, because I did find that the new Avalon felt pretty good, although it was a little heavy feeling, but it was a pretty decent handler for what it was. Anyway, these new Lexus ESs are going to be on sale in September, but no pricing has been announced yet. But anyway, cool to see that. And there's lots of debuts this week from the Beijing Motor Show. And so BMW showed off the Concept iX3, which is this full EV version of the X3. It's got 268 horsepower and 249 miles of range from a 70 kilowatt hour battery. So, basically this is going to go to production, of course. In the production version, will basically just have, normal looking wheels, maybe a slightly toned down grille. And they're saying it should appear around 2020. And it's going to be one of the 12 EVs that BMW is committed to making by 2025. And so anyway, interesting to see that. BMW also revealed some official spy shots. I don't really get the point of these. It's like it's still got camo on it, so I don't know. Anyway, so they along with those pictures, they also gave us some details about the 8 Series, and they promised it's going to be on sale this year. But we're already almost halfway into the year, and they still haven't even peeled the camo off of it yet. Yet they're saying it's going to be available to buy in showrooms before the end of this year. So hopefully the reveal is very soon, if they want to actually make that happen. And so anyway, some of the details they gave about it so far as they've announced one version of it. There's going to be the M850i. It's going to, obviously they're going to have a full-on M8 later on and also slower versions. But anyway, this M850i, they say it's going to have V8, although they didn't say what type of V8. But they said it's going to have 523 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque, and that's the only specifics they gave. They said it's going to have an 8-speed automatic and a rear-biased all-wheel drive system. So anyway, we'll have to wait to hear more about that. Jeep this past week debuted at the Beijing Motor Show the Grand Commander 3-row SUV for China. And this is kind of odd because these have been spied in the United States, and so everyone assumed we're going to be getting this in the States. But whenever all the specs were detailed here for it, it doesn't sound like it would make sense. So it's only 2 inches longer than a Grand Cherokee, actually. And I mean, maybe they could stretch it out, give us a stretched version, but it's also 2 inches more narrow than a Grand Cherokee. So it's skinnier, and it only comes with a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, which is fine. It's the same as the Wrangler and the Cherokee get. But in the Chinese version here, it only does 231 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque instead of the 270 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque that it makes here. But anyway, so it's just like a slightly smaller, kind of shrunken down vehicle. You would think they would have made it larger. And so maybe we're going to be getting something completely different here for the States, but it's kind of odd. You'd think they would have just made one vehicle for everyone and saved some costs, but who knows? But anyway, interesting to see that. And I'm sure once we do finally get a 3-row SUV, it'll probably look very similar to that as well. Honda this past week revealed this Everus EV concept, which is based on the HR-V, as you can probably tell. We only have 2 pictures of it here. And it's a concept for now, but they said they're going to actually be going on sale by the end of this year with this model in China only. And so this Everus is actually a new brand that's a collaboration between Honda and the GAC Group, which they're a Chinese car company. And so they're working together on this vehicle, and it's going to be a full EV. Again, no specifics were given on it, really. And I'm sure some of this technology is going to work its way over to future EV Hondas. But for now, this is just for China, and this is, again, just this collab between the two. But anyway, interesting to see that. Mercedes also showed off the A-Class L sedan in Beijing, which is, again, a Chinese-only special because, the Chinese market, those people, they really like a larger back seat. So they kind of stretch out the back end of the vehicle. And that's what this is. The regular A-Class sedan, the rest of the world's going to get is going to have a smaller back seat. And, everyone that wants a larger vehicle just goes up to the larger, C-Class. But anyway, this will basically be the A-Class sedan we'll be getting here in the States as far as styling goes with the front end and the back end. And looks very, very good. Just, again, imagine it, a couple inches shorter and you're set. But this isn't the new CLA. That's going to be a separate vehicle that was spied, testing over the past few months here. That's going to have a swoopier roof line and some more coupe-like taillights and things there, similar to what you see on other Mercedes products, and that'll be kind of positioned a little bit above the A-Class that we're going to be getting here in the States. So anyway, but cool to see that A-Class there for China. Also, Mercedes-Maybach, they revealed the ultimate luxury concept and gave all the details on it here. And as you can see, it's this odd-looking crossover / sedan mashup thing. The back end really has most people thrown for a loop with the split rear window, which I can appreciate being a vintage car lover. That's a kind of a cool throwback, but it's just the shape of, I think, the roof and stuff. It just is a little too bubbly, I guess, is the word. And so anyway, it's just a concept, but everyone was thinking maybe this would preview a production model, but it sounds like it's a little out there to be anything close to production. Most likely a production Maybach SUV would be based on the GLS. There's also rumors of a Maybach G-Wagon coming, which again would make sense, just make it a nicer interior G-Wagon probably. But anyway, back to this concept. It's fully electric. It's got 750 horsepower from its electric motors and 200 miles of range on an 80 kilowatt hour battery. And so supposedly it's very luxurious inside. It has Mercedes, what they're calling magic wood, some kind of type of special wood. It also has a complete tea set there with a variety of teas actually included with the car to match the various relaxation modes the car offers. So there's, I think there's going to be, a bunch of different, flavors to go with the aromas you get in the vehicle and stuff like that. And Volvo has a similar idea, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But anyway, interesting to see that. Jaguar at the Beijing Motor Show revealed the 50th anniversary edition of the XJ sedan that they're calling the XJ50. It's basically just it's been around for 50 years. It's really cool. It's just got, special front and rear bumpers, unique badging and wheels and interior accents and things. You can either get with a supercharged V6 or the supercharged V8. And so anyway, cool to see that, and congrats on them for, making it 50 years. the rumor is that the next gen XJ, if they even call it that, will probably be a fully electric vehicle, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Other Jaguar news, though, is that Autocar is reporting that Jaguar is getting rid of the XES and the XFS in the UK due to, I guess, slow sales. He said it was only like 2% of XE and XF sales were the S's, which is kind of surprising, honestly. Again, I haven't driven the S, unfortunately, for either of those, but I did drive the regular XE, and it was a lot of fun, but maybe it was just fun enough in regular trim that people didn't feel the need for the extra power. I don't know, but us here in America, we do enjoy the power, and so thankfully Jaguar has said so far, at least they're keeping the XES around for us here in the States, but it might not be for much longer, and the reason being is because it sounds like, well, at least for the UK, Jaguar is probably going to be phasing out this supercharged V6, and that most likely will, again, trickle down to us here in the States, soon after as well. But it's going to be replaced by probably an inline six in the Ingenium family, which is the 4-cylinder engines they have. I think they would kind of just add an additional 2 cylinders to that, kind of engineer that, and then have that as like kind of middle ground, because you can't have just the 4-cylinder turbo and then the supercharged V8. You got to have something in the middle. And so I think they would actually replace it with an inline six, which is cool. As much as I love the supercharged V6 and the way that it sounds, it's one of the most glorious sounding V6s out there. If they do an inline six, that kind of goes right in line with Jaguar history. That's what they had, was inline sixes, and so to me that makes it a-okay in my book. And so anyway, not too bad of news there, but it might be a little bit of a switch up for some. Getting back to those luxurious interiors though here, Volvo at the Beijing Motor Show revealed the S90 Ambiance concept, and so it takes the S90 Excellence interior, which is the long wheelbase S90, which is already very luxurious already, and then it adds a 7 different themes, including Northern Lights, Scandinavian Forest, Freedom, and Nocturnal, which each have their own ceiling light show, unique scents with aromas in the interior, and unique modes for the Bowers & Wilkins stereo. And so it's just a concept, but it's again designed to provide people with the ultimate relaxation. And I don't know, the whole light show on the ceiling thing sounds pretty cool, though. If you have a driver and you just want to chill there in the back seat. But yeah, so anyway, interesting to see that. Other Volvo news is that some media outlets this past week are reporting that the Polestar 1, that EV sports car that Volvo showed last year, they're saying that that's going to be starting at $155,000 here in the United States, but Volvo still claims you can only get it by subscribing to it, with their subscription by Volvo or Care by Volvo, whatever it is, and it'll cover, insurance, maintenance, all that type of stuff, and that's the only way you'll be able to get one. And so I'm guessing that $155,000 number was put out there just to kind of give people an idea of the lease pricing for it, or, the subscription pricing. You take, a regular XC40 price, and multiply that by whatever, because I think those are like $400 a month for their subscription. So you take that price, multiply by whatever, and that'll give you an idea of how much it would cost to subscribe to one of these Polestar 1s, which is interesting to hear. Other electrified news is that Lamborghini's CEO this past week confirmed to Top Gear magazine that the next gen Aventador and Huracans will have plug-in hybrid powertrains. But it's not all bad news, because they said they're going to stick with the V10s and V12s that are naturally aspirated, and they're not going to do turbos, because they say turbos kill emotion. I kind of agree in many cases, and so I really like that they're sticking with the naturally aspirated motors, and so I think this hybrid thing is kind of like a way to make them a little more fuel efficient, and make them operable in the future in places that are banning gasoline engines in city centers, like I think Paris and London are like 2025 or something. So I mean, whenever that does come, I think it might be a little further off, like 2040 or something, I think, when they want to ban them altogether. Anyway, so when I think they're kind of preparing for all that type of stuff and saying, okay, we need to have some type of electric range here, and so that's why they're doing this. So anyway, the next gen Aventador is coming in 2020, the next gen Huracan's coming in 2022. So Top Gear magazine, in this article, they kind of used an example. So if Lamborghini used the Porsche e-hybrid system, which, since they're copying a lot of stuff from Porsche, since they're all one big, happy company, if they use that, they would, to give some possible horsepower numbers for what you could get with the boost with the e-hybrid, comparing the e-hybrid Porsche Panamera Turbo S to the regular Turbo S version, you could bump power for the Aventador, even with the regular current engine configuration to 860 horsepower with that hybrid assistance, and the Huracan could go to 728 horsepower. The only problem with that hybrid system is it's heavy. All these batteries and electric motors and stuff. On the Porsche, it adds 661 pounds to the curb weight, which would mean that without some serious aggressive weight savings or lots of more carbon fiber or whatever, these Lambos would turn into really, really heavy vehicles. They're already not lightweights, but this would really make them pretty portly. So we'll have to see how Lamborghini decides to integrate it again. They got a couple of years to figure this out, and I'm sure they're already working on it and figuring it out now. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Speaking of plugins, though, again, this is the future. This is going to be everywhere, whether or not we like it. So Target is joining retailers that are, announcing that they're going to be adding charging stations. Last week it was Walmart saying they were working with Volkswagen to have charging stations in over 100 of their stores, I think, next year. So this week here we have Target who's saying they're going to add over 100 stores are going to get new charging stations to have a total of over 600 parking spaces in 20 states over the next 2 years. So they're currently partnered with ChargePoint and Tesla, and they'll continue to work with those two in addition to, I guess, some others as well. But again, you just expect to see lots of plugs everywhere. Now with Walmart, they're saying they would put them mostly along highways, where people are most likely to be on road trips and they need to charge. But again, hopefully these won't be showing up at your local neighborhood Target unless you live right next to a highway, because again, it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have all this area crowded up with all these charging stations in cramped parking lots unless you're on a highway where people need it. Otherwise, most people's electric cars have enough range to go to Target and back from their house. So, hopefully people won't abuse them, but I'm not too optimistic. We'll have to see. For some cooler tech here, I think is actually really practical, is Amazon this past week announced new in-car deliveries that they're going to be making and rolling out here through the Amazon Key app. And so this is going to work with Volvo's On-Call and GM's OnStar system, and so it's going to be available initially in 37 cities, and it's free to Prime members, so it's just another delivery option you can get. Basically, they have a whole little video here showing, but basically you just choose in-car as your delivery option, then you get notifications when it's on its way to your car, and then some delivery person unlocks your car with their app and tosses it in your trunk, closes it, and relocks your car remotely, that's the kind of how that works. And you get a notification whenever your car is locked again and everything, and whenever the package is there. And they said this is mostly a convenience thing for people that are worried about their packages getting stolen off of their front porch, which sadly is a very common thing. And also, just people who don't want to get something delivered at their actual workplace. If it's if your car is parked in a public parking spot, you can just do that instead. And so anyway, that's a pretty cool feature there. But again, only for Volvo and GM vehicles that have those connected services. But again, lots of other vehicles have that functionality, so I'm sure they'll add other manufacturers soon. But anyway, cool to see that. There's a couple vehicles that were spied this past week, but not too much. The first is Chevy was spied testing the Silverado RST. So we knew there was an RST version coming of this all-new Silverado. This is our first time seeing it, and definitely looks sportier for sure. The RST for the other Chevys basically just gives you the option to get an exhaust system and a few other sportier things, but it's mostly just an appearance package, and I would expect it to basically be the same here for this new Silverado, although it certainly does look more aggressive here in that trim. Also, Ford was spied testing the 2019 F-150, which looks like, at least for the limited trim, it's going to get a light refresh on the back end. Mostly, all you can see is that it's got a new rear bumper with exhaust outlets that are integrated into the rear bumper. This is something that both Chevy and Dodge Ram has been doing with their new models, and I think it kind of gives a little bit more of an upscale look, and so that's why Ford is joining the bandwagon on that one, and so I guess that's a revision here for the 2019 F-150. Also, Jeep was spied this past week testing the 2019 Renegade again, and this time we get a better look at the headlights there, which look pretty similar in design to the new Wranglers with, those LED rings you have going around, which looks pretty cool, and it'll most likely just be only on the higher trims, because we've seen, obviously there's going to be cheaper Renegades out there with, just the standard halogen headlamps or whatever still, but anyway, they're calling this a 2019 model, so I'm pretty sure we should be seeing these relatively soon here if they want to actually have them on sale, by the fall or whatever, or the winter. So Anyway, but cool to see that. And recently, a viewer sent me over some spy shots of the BMW X3M, and of course, it was also spied on the Nürburgring running around. But the news this week here on this X3M, since we know it's coming, motoring.es is reporting that although, the rumor is that the X3M in standard version is going to have 450 horsepower or so, the Spanish site, they're saying that it's going to get a competition version also, and that'll do 475 horsepower in the typical, 25 or so odd horsepower bump you get with the competition packages, which is definitely going to mean that the new M3 is going to have at least that much power or more, because I think it would be kind of odd if the X3M had more power than the new M3 does whenever that comes out. But I just also think it's kind of weird that the X3M is getting a competition package, because yes, I know it's just a name, but originally the competition package for the BMWs was actually for competition, and anyone who's taking their X3M on a track day, would probably be better served in an M3 or something that has a lower center of gravity. So it seems a little, to me, to make a competition version of an SUV. But again, these are the times we're living in with sedans dying off, so it's the new norm, and we'll just have to get used to it. Other odd news this past week. It's a strange week for news. There's a new report here from Motor Trend, who spoke with the COO of Hyundai Motors America, who said Hyundai is going to be making the Santa Cruz pickup truck, which everyone loved back when it was revealed all the way at the 2015 Detroit Auto Show. They said they're going to be making a truck, but it's not going to be a two-door like that one. It's going to actually be a full-on four-door truck that seats 5 people, which sounds fine. It's less sporty that way, but, will sell to a lot more people. But the catch here is they're saying it's going to be on a unibody platform that's shared with the Tucson, which again is one of the smaller SUVs in the Hyundai lineup, and again would mean that it's unibody, not an actual body-on-frame truck. And if you look at the truck sales in the truck market, the unibody trucks, basically just the Ridgeline, don't sell well. And even the ancient Nissan Frontier, which is 15 years old at this point or something, even that has been selling better than the Ridgeline, just because it's a body-on-frame truck, and that for truck buyers it has to be body-on-frame. So even though the Ridgeline's far superior than the Frontier, it's just the way it is, and that's what truck buyers want. And so for them to make it a unibody thing, yeah, sure, they'll take a small little chunk of Ridgeline sales because it'll probably be cheaper than the Ridgeline. But other than that, I don't get why Hyundai wouldn't just do an actual body-on-frame truck. The numbers are way bigger on those, and just doesn't make any sense. The Tucson, those are only powered by 4-cylinder engines too, so you don't have a lot of power, so you can't tow, you can't, have any kind of payload. I don't know. It just seems like a really odd choice. Yeah, it'd be nice and cheap to develop it on the Tucson platform, but just so many other options I think they could have done, or just, honestly, with how huge truck sales are blowing up everywhere, it would have been worthwhile for them to actually invest in a whole new truck platform, for both Hyundai and Kia. Share the costs and you're good. But anyway, that's the news here from the COO, and so we'll have to see, how that develops here and when that finally comes. Another small truck that supposedly is coming as the next gen Land Rover Defender. So we've just seen some spy mules running around that are still very rough, not even close to a production version or anything. But Autocar here is reporting that in addition to the short and long wheelbase versions of what will be basically a Wrangler and G-Wagon kind of competitor, they're also planning a single cab pickup version of this Defender. And so again, they want to kind of target, I think, like the Mercedes X-Class, which we don't get here in the States. Again, another truck, and something along that line. But again, would be unibody, not a full-on body-on-frame thing, I don't think. So again, we'll have to see which versions of this Defender we get. It's a cool idea to have a little British single cab pickup truck thing, and would be a cool alternative to the Wrangler, which is getting a pickup truck version as well. But anyway, yeah, I don't know which of those we'll be getting here in the States, but a cool idea nonetheless. But yeah, so that's it for all the news this week, guys. So let me know your thoughts about everything in the comments below, especially about Ford killing off all their sedans and stuff. It's really crazy. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next week. Take care.